All right, praise God. We're on our second church mentioned in Revelation. Jesus speaking to the seven churches. And tonight, actually right there, they got the title for me. Which my title is The Church of Smyrna. I didn't put to the Church of Smyrna, but anyhow. So, starting with Revelation chapter 2, verse 8, and I'll be reading through verse 11. It says, "And unto the angel of the church in Smyrna write, These things saith the first and the last, which was dead and is alive. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. Fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer. Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days. Be thou faithful unto death, and I will give thee a crown of life. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith unto the churches. He that overcometh shall not be hurt of the second death." Praise God. All right, now, kind of similar to the church at Ephesus, really the main difference mentioned, well, I said I don't remember them actually speaking of the tribulation and things in Ephesus, but God does mention some of the other things as far as the righteousness and the works and things like that, good works. But even in Ephesus, God spoke the things that they needed to fix. And I had mentioned at the beginning of this that I knew of at least one church that God didn't say anything negative about them. And there was one church He didn't say nothing good. And so anyhow, this church at Smyrna, they were a prime example of how a church should be. But anyhow, so God talks about their works, that their works was good. They lived righteous. And we see in 1 Peter 1, verses 15 and 16. It says, "But as He which has called you is holy, so be ye holy in all manner of conversation, because it is written, Be ye holy, for I am holy." There's a lot of people that they think there's no difference in them and people in the world. Well, sadly, that's true for them. But I think God, He said, "Come out from among them.
Right.
Be ye separate." I'm glad I'm not like the world. I don't think, I've even come, and I hope you have too. I'm sure you have come to the place that, I was just, I don't know if it was today or yesterday. It might have been yesterday. I was thinking about certain things. Just things that are common for the world. And it's like a lot of times I forget that I used to think the same way. And I think, what's wrong with these people? Why? Well, matter of fact, as we were going to pick up Sister Richardson, we seen a guy out there. He cut down a tree. Well, I said he cut this tree down on Sunday a while back, and now he had pulled up the stump and, was kind of leveling the dirt and all that kind of stuff. And, like he said, well, he must not be a church person. And you notice those things. You see somebody, you're on the way to church, and you see somebody and you can tell they're not on their way to church. You think, what's wrong with him? And me and my wife, we talk about that all the time. But, you go back enough years, what's it been, 15, 16 years ago, we,
A long time.
a long time ago, we were the same way. We weren't going to church. And so, but we are to live a holy life. Have the mind of God. And he also talked about them suffering tribulation. See in Matthew 5:10 through 12. It says, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. For so persecuted they the prophets which were before you.
Yes.
Now, I know people that are living in, deep sin. Fornication, adultery, drugs, alcohol, cuss like I don't know what. There's all kinds of ungodliness. And they'll put on Facebook about God. Well, it says, blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake. It don't say, blessed are those that have their money stole for trying to buy drugs from the drug dealer, or being around the wrong crowd, boyfriend that you shouldn't be with anyhow beat you up. Has nothing to do with it. It's not talking about, if you live a certain life, bad things are to be expected. I've got a saying about certain people that have stuff happen to them. They sit and wonder why it happened to us. Well, it didn't happen to you on the way to Sunday school. I guarantee you. I used to get myself in a bunch of trouble when I was younger. Well, it don't happen anymore for some reason. I'm not involved in that. I hadn't had anybody pick a fight with me in many, many, many years. Well, I'm not in the situation to make that happen. I'm not saying that it couldn't happen, but it's just not something that I have to deal with because, I'm not involved in that area of people mindset. I'll tell you what did happen to me one time. I was at a man's house having Bible study, and I'm dressed like I am now with my khakis and button-up shirt. Sitting there in his living room, what I call my preacher clothes. And this girl comes in, and she's holding money in her hand. I asked the guy, "You got anything?" And she's kind of shaking a little bit, and scratching her arms and doing all this craziness. And I'm sitting right there with the Bible open on the couch. And she come to buy some drugs. He told her, "Come back later." Now, I don't mind that. I was having Bible study. But sadly it wasn't received too well, shall I say. But we will be persecuted. It might not be on a level as the first century church was, thank God, a lot of times. But people look down on us. We'll have friends and family that, we're not in the clique. We're going to be persecuted one way or another. We started a church in the storefront downtown McLeod. We just wanted to put a sign up, not a pole. There was, matter of fact, there was already, which I think we did. Did you help me with that, Brother Skaggs? Yeah, you did. Didn't you? Got your scaff around. We had to put new holes in, didn't we? I think
so, because
there was something. Yeah, It kind of looked like there was already anchor bolts in there. And I don't know if we used a couple of them or not. I don't know. But anyhow, we just wanted to put it up on the brick in the front of the building, up above the parking area. Next thing I know, here comes the code enforcer. Well, you need 10-foot wide parking areas right here. City Hall was just right down the block. I look up there and I said, y'all have 10-foot wide parking areas? He said, well, don't worry about that. You need a fire extinguisher, you need smoke detectors, you need all this stuff. Which that wasn't no problem. Hey, if it's going to help you be safe, fine. But I couldn't do nothing about the parking. And thank God they ended up kind of leaving that alone. Next thing I know, somebody told me in town, said they were at a meeting. And they heard out of the city manager's mouth that he didn't want any churches downtown. They needed businesses to pay taxes. Well, that's persecution. They're trying to run a church off. And the building that we were in has been empty for 2 or 3 years now, or somewhere there close. It's probably been empty more than it's had anything in it since we left. They're not making anything in it. Jesus also said that, mentioned about them suffering poverty. Acts 11:27 through 29. It says, in these days came prophets from Jerusalem to Antioch, and there stood up one of them named Agabus, and signified by the Spirit that there should be great dearth throughout the world, which came to pass in the days of Claudius Caesar. Then the disciples, every man according to his ability, determined to send relief unto the brethren which dwelt in Judea. So that word dearth, it means a scarcity of food or famine. Technical difficulty. I'm sitting here stomping on this cord. I need to get my cord straightened out. There we go. But, a famine came. Prophecy of famine, people without food. They were sending money for those in. You wonder, well, why were they sending stuff to people in Judea? Well, think about this. The Jews weren't too happy about these Christians. And if you were a Jew and you became a Christian, it was probably about as bad as a Muslim becoming a Christian in the middle of Iran. People were going to be cutting them off. They wouldn't do business with them. They weren't going to help them at all. They needed help. So, for one thing, is prosperity doctrine is false doctrine. Oh, live for God, Joel Osteen. Oh, live for God, you'll be rich. Well, tell the people in Judea that. That's the fakest stuff. But you know what? Jesus told them they were rich. Now there's another place where he talks about them. We'll get to it another time. I can't remember exactly which church it was, but it was kind of just the opposite. He was saying, you think you're rich, but you're poor. And these people were poor, but yet they were faithful to God. And he said, you're rich. So everybody here tonight is rich. Praise God. And he encouraged them to continue to be faithful. If he's encouraging them to continue to be faithful, that tells me they were pretty faithful. Even though there's going to be even more persecution, more suffering, poverty, and all this, he said, continue to be faithful. Regardless of what we go through in our walk with God, we must stay faithful to Him. It's just like Job. Job went through a lot, but he stayed faithful to God. This life is just a vapor. We've got eternity to be with God. Galatians 6, 7 through 9. And I'll close with this. It says, be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. For he that soweth to his flesh, shall of the flesh reap corruption. But he that soweth to the Spirit shall of the Spirit reap life everlasting. And let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap, if we faint not. So all we need to do is stay faithful to God. Regardless of what we have to suffer with, or regardless of what we go through, we'll just be faithful to God. And we'll get our reward. Let's worship God in song.